I pointed out in my MGS5 E3 2015 trailer analysis that Skullface seems to appear out of nowhere behind Big Boss at Mother Base, and this brought me to believe that Skullface may in fact be a separate personality within Big Boss, like a dark side that causes him to turn into the villain seen later in the Metal Gear timeline. A lot of people agreed with my theory, but also a lot of people disagreed with my theory as well. One of these people who disagreed with my theory is Young Yad. Now, I have nothing but respect for Young. In fact, he is one of the people that inspired me to start making videos about the things I love, primarily Metal Gear. And it is completely fine for him to disagree with this theory. But the thing is, he disagrees with the theory because he is thinking about it the wrong way. Young is coming at this theory as though Skullface and Big Boss were the same person from the start of Ground Zeroes. And that couldn't be possible, because Skullface put a bomb into Paz, and when Paz woke up at the end of Ground Zeroes, she wasn't acting like Big Boss was responsible for the position she was in. Thinking about it that way, of course, you would come to the conclusion that they are two different people. But that is not how I am looking at this theory. Think of it this way. Perhaps Skullface dies at some point during or even before the events of the Phantom Pain, during the 9-year hiatus while Big Boss was in a coma, and Big Boss kind of takes on his personality and creates an alternate personality within himself that takes the shape of Skullface within his own mind. When you think of it this way, things may start to make sense, but that isn't enough to base a solid theory on. No pun intended. But what if I were to tell you that there are a lot more things pointing toward this theory being the case? Just hear me out, and maybe after this video, you will see what I see. Let's start with the fact that Big Boss is changing. He is going through a transformation. He is becoming more like a demon, more like the villain we know from the original Metal Gear games. And speaking of the original Metal Gear games, why would he be Snake's commanding officer and still lead him toward himself? I mean, sure, he tries to lure Snake into traps throughout the game, but maybe that isn't him at all. Maybe Big Boss is trying to be the good guy, while Skullface is trying to be the bad guy. Looking further at the new Big Boss, we see the shrapnel protruding from his skull. This shrapnel could be pressing on his brain and making his condition worsen. I say worsen because after some research, I believe that Big Boss had a previously existing condition that was made worse by his life and by his injuries. I believe that Big Boss has dissociative identity disorder, commonly known as multiple personality disorder. Let's look at some of the symptoms of this disorder and see how well Big Boss fits the bill. People with dissociative identity disorder often have problems with alcoholism and drug abuse. Now, I wouldn't say that Big Boss is an alcoholic or a drug addict. Or is he? The Phantom Cigar contains a mixture of herbs that speed up the perception of time. This sounds like a drug to me, so check 1 for that. Another symptom is auditory or visual hallucinations. If you look at the burning phantom that looks like Volgan from MGS3, that is definitely a hallucination. Although it could be a hallucination caused by Psycho Mantis, which is probably the case, it could possibly still fit the bill. So, check 2. More symptoms are self-persecution and depression. Throughout several of the games after MGS3, Big Boss seems to be depressed, and he even seems to me like he kind of hates himself for having to kill his mentor, the boss. He was forced to kill the only motherly figure he knew, and this caused a lot of problems within him. So, check 3. Another symptom is amnesia or time loss. This one I am not entirely sure about, but I have some things to point out. When Snake awakes from a 9-year coma, he struggles a bit, but is able to get to his feet and walk again fairly quickly. Now this could be because he is a badass soldier, but it could also be because he wasn't in a 9-year coma, but perhaps a shorter coma, or even a drug-induced coma. Perhaps he was being held by Skullface and tortured until an alternate personality came out. Kind of like a Manchurian Candidate, where a person is tortured until their mind switches off, and they create a new ego to take the torture instead. And in the case of the Manchurian Candidate, this other personality could even be given a mission to carry out upon a certain trigger, and the host personality would never even know that this happened. But that is kind of drawing at straws, and is pure speculation, so I guess I'll give it a half check. Another symptom of dissociative identity disorder is out-of-body experiences, which we know for a fact that Big Boss has indeed had these experiences. In Metal Gear Solid 3, after Big Boss dives from the waterfall, he finds himself walking up a river while the ghosts of the Cobras passing by. If this isn't an out-of-body experience, I don't know what is. So, check 4.5. Self-harm is another symptom of this disorder, and as we know from Peace Walker, Big Boss stitched a strand of razor wire into his chest to form an S like the scar on the boss. So, self-harm? Check 5.5. More symptoms include mood swings. I can't really find any examples for this, aside from the trailer where Big Boss forces one of his soldiers to stab him in the chest. This could be due to a sudden mood swing from Big Boss, and could also fall into the self-harm category. But since this is only a possibility, let's give it another half check. That makes 6. Feeling the world is not real, like it is foggy or far away, or like it is all a dream, is another symptom. And as we can see in the original reveal trailer for The Phantom Pain, several questions are asked such as, is this a dream? And is this real? And I assume that Big Boss is asking himself these questions, although it could be just for effect, but I'm going to give it another check, so that makes 7. Other symptoms are sleep disorders, such as insomnia or night terrors. Now, I don't know if Big Boss has a problem with insomnia, since we barely ever see him sleep, or attempt to sleep, but I am going to point out a little mini-game within the original version of MGS3. While captured in the cell, if you save, quit, and reload, the game will start as a completely different game. Everything is black and white and very creepy, and instead of being Snake, you are now Guy Savage, and the game becomes a hack and slash where you must fight off a group of vampires. And after a little while, Snake wakes up and you discover that it was a nightmare. So, night terrors, check 8. So far, that's 8. Let's see if there are any more. Anxiety, panic attacks, or phobias. I can't think of any instances where Big Boss may have these problems, so no check here. Let me know in the comments if you can think of anything that would fit. Compulsions or rituals. Again, I can't think of anything that would fit, so again, no check. And again, let me know if you can think of anything. Eating disorders. A third lack of anything I can think of, but maybe he developed some kind of eating disorder by eating all those snakes in the jungle. But again, no check here. Dissociative identity disorder can progress and worsen with age if it is not properly managed. So it could go from having just a few symptoms to a full-blown disorder where the person with the disorder could create an entirely new personality. And this disorder has also been shown to run in the family, so what if Solid Snake also has this disorder? Another symptom of this disorder is flashbacks, which I can't think of any instances where Big Boss has had flashbacks, but if you look at MGS4, the game is full of them. Snake is constantly having flashbacks by pressing X in certain cutscenes, so check 9. Suicidal tendencies are another symptom, where the person with this affliction will do things recklessly or even attempt suicide. Well, pretty much everyone in the Metal Gear universe has this problem. They all seem to put themselves in harm's way in one way or another. But I'm going to point out the major one. At the end of MGS4, Solid Snake puts a gun in his mouth to attempt to kill himself. This is probably due to the fear of becoming a weapon of mass destruction himself, but it could also be due to this disorder. So, suicidal tendencies, check 10. That's 10 out of 13 symptoms that I know of. So this theory is looking pretty likely. However, I will say that a lot of these symptoms are also shared with post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, which is also a likely candidate for a guy like Snake, so nothing is entirely solid. Again, no pun intended. Now, I am not an expert in the field of psychology by any means, so I can't say for sure that Big Boss has dissociative identity disorder, but I can say that he does indeed fit the bill. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments below. This has been Doughboy with Hardcore Academy, and peace out.